going to take my braid and I'm going to double it over. This is a 20-pound braid and a 17-pound leader, but that braid is about the diameter of 6-pound mono. So doubling that braid brings its diameter that I'm going to tie with up to almost the thickness of this 17-pound fluorocarbon. Not quite as thick, but as long as they are similar in diameter, that's going to help that knot be a lot stronger than if I were to just tie one strand of braid to that fluorocarbon. What happens with that is that braid will either, it's so thin and so sharp, it will either cut itself or it will cut the fluorocarbon. By doubling that diameter, it really allows you to match the two lines together, and they won't cut into themselves or each other. So now that I have my braid doubled over, as such, I'm going to take my fluorocarbon and run it through my index and my middle finger and line it up parallel with that braid. Now that I've done that, I can sort of envision these two lines laying together once I start tying this knot. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, this is a really hard part to describe, so bear with me. I'm going to take my tying length of braid, loop it underneath my middle finger of my right hand. Once I've done this, I'm going to pull up some of the slack under here so that I have enough line to work with. I'm going to loop this around my middle finger and then swing it back towards the direction it's coming from. Once I have this configuration, my lines are still laying parallel to each other, and I'm going to use my thumb right here and oops, almost came apart there. I'm going to use my thumb right here and momentarily pinch it so that it's a loop. I'm going to bring back my middle finger and go into that loop, and I'm going to bring my middle finger from my left hand and go into that loop as well. Now I have both of my middle fingers in this loop that I've made, and I'm pinching everything with my index finger and thumb on my left hand. This is a really tricky way to tie this knot, but if you do it this way, it will lay together very nicely in my experience. Once I have my middle fingers in this loop, I'm going to then come around with my right index finger and my right thumb, and then the braid's going to take another turn. So now I still have everything pinched in my left hand with my left thumb and index finger, and I'm going to bring that braid back around. So that braid has now gone in 3 directions. It's come over towards the leader, come back around towards itself, and now it's back over towards the leader. I now have a pinched loop of braid laying over top of my fluorocarbon. Once I have this set up, I then take my third finger, my ring finger, and I come into that loop. Much like in the improved clinch knot, now I'm going to use my index, middle, and thumb on my right hand to loop that braid around all 3 strands of line. So that loop that I've made with my middle fingers is now being supported by my ring finger on my right hand, and I'm bringing that doubled over braid all the way around the upper strands of this knot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sometimes I just count to 6, to be honest with you. That's probably 5 loops. Anywhere between 4 and 7 loops will do. So now we're here. So I'm able to let go of that loop with my ring finger on my right hand, and what I'm going to use to finish off this part of the knot is my index finger and right thumb. I'm going to release that pinch that I had going down here on the bottom half of the knot, and I'm going to start fastening it shut. Usually it will lay together nicely over top of the fluorocarbon, but if it doesn't, give it a little wet and it should lay together all right. That formed a nice little beehive for me. I got lucky that time. Sometimes it doesn't lay together that nice, but 20-pound braid tends to lay together pretty nicely. In the case, now I can let go of my left hand finally. In the case that this were to not lay nicely the first time you pull it, you're going to take this loop that you've made and take your first 2 fingers, pinch everything on the left side, and just give it a little wiggle and tighten it down by walking it back and forth. And what that does is it really makes that a beehive. It did smooth that knot out a little bit. Okay, now the braid attachment is finished. We're gonna completely flip this knot so that now my braid loop is on the left and my fluorocarbon loop will be on the right. So we are going to remain consistent with the doubling up of the braid to increase its diameter, and we're going to be tying this fluorocarbon around the braid in the same exact fashion as I did when I tied the braid around the fluorocarbon. So I'm pinching everything on the left, which is a little easier now. I have something to pinch. I'm supporting my main line with my bottom two fingers, crossing it back over. Pinch your loop, much like I did with the braid, and then I'm going to come in with my ring finger, and then my top three fingers are now available to start looping that fluorocarbon around your doubled over braid. Because the fluorocarbon is a lot more brittle and stout than the braid is, you'll see the knot looks really messy and wavy right now. I'm just going to do 3 loops on that. The reason it looks like that is because the fluorocarbon is more stiff, but once the knot straightens itself out, that will change. So this one I usually give a really good wet to. And the hard part about when you get to this point in the knot is that, oh, I almost messed that up. The hard part when you get to this point in the knot is keeping these strands together. Because if you just cinch this shut, it's going to go all kinds of messy on you with this braid. You have to keep both strands of braid tight and together to finish this knot. If you don't do that, your knot's not going to lay properly. So I'm going to tighten it down a little bit. And look there, I lost one of the strands of braid, so I'm going to come back around and re-grip. Tighten down my fluorocarbon. That's not all the way tight, but that's about as good as I'm going to get it right now. Like I said, with the doubled up braid, it's really tricky to keep those strands together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grip with the insides of my fingers, and here's where my thumb comes in. My thumb is going to come and not only pinch those 2 strands of braid, but also I'm going to roll the knot on top of my thumb to keep tension on both those strands equally, so that once I start pulling on the fluorocarbon from this side, it cinches down and one doesn't get all looped up. So here we go. I'm pinching really hard with my thumb. We start cinching, and there you see one of the strands of braid got all looped up because my grip slipped. Now to correct that, we're going to go and figure out which one it is. Let's pull the main line. Nope, that wasn't it. And let's pull that tag end. That was it. So now that that's straightened out, we're going to give it one last tug from the other side, and we're also going to give the fluorocarbon a tug from the tag end side, just to be sure. So there exists your knot. Now for one final time, I'm going to take both main lines, forget all the tag ends, I'm going to take both main lines, roll them against my thumb, and really tighten that knot down. And I don't know if you were able to see that or not, but that knot just popped into place beautifully. I'm taking my tag ends, really tightening that knot down. Now this knot needs to be cleaned up majorly because I have 4 tag ends. So I'm going to take the knot, move it laterally, grip my main line. Usually this is attached to a rod, so it's a lot easier to pull down on. I'm going to grip my main line and get all those tag ends bunched up on one side. So I have my main line right here, my braid, my fluorocarbon leader. Here's my knot. I have it laying this way just because the fluorocarbon's a little more straight. And then I'm going to come in with my knife, go underneath all the tag ends, guide the knot onto the knife with my thumb, and just gently roll the knife and give it a little wiggle. And if your knife's sharp, it will do that beautifully. There go all my tag ends. Goodbye. And there you have it. There is your double uni braid to leader knot